Whenever you're watching a mainstream media TV show or radio show or some kind of media outlet, somebody has to book the guests that you see on the programs. Well, ladies and gentlemen, today's guest is a booking producer. He's also a media guru. He's a podcaster. He's a producer. And on today's show, he joins us to share about the dangers of media disinformation and censorship. Also, I think I failed to mention, this guy happens to be a content-producing machine in his own right. You see, today's guest, Matt Bailey, has a podcast called the Talk for Two podcast, where he's interviewed big-time guests such as former White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer, TV great Larry King, the film producer Oliver Stone, Bob Barker from The Price is Right, and the Garth Brooks. Oh yes, ladies and gentlemen, today's guest is kind of a big deal, and he's here with you. Now, without any further ado, let's get into today's interview with the media guru, Matt Bailey.
Some shows don't need a celebrity narrator to introduce the show, but this show does. 2 men, 8 kids, co-created by 2 different women, 13 multi-million-dollar businesses. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Thrive Time Show.
Now, 3, 2, 1, here we go!
Started from the bottom, now we here. Started from the bottom, and we'll show you how to get here. Started from the bottom, now we here. Started from the bottom, now we here. Started from the bottom, now we here.
Yes, and yes! Thrive Nation, on today's show, we are interviewing a man who knows about a subject that is really impacting everybody out there. Everybody out there, we all watch social media and we watch mass media to get what we perceive to be facts or truth or data. But what if you only heard one side of the story? Yeah, what if you went to ABC, NBC, CBS, and you kept hearing only one side of the story? What if you didn't get the objective information? What if you didn't get the facts? What if you didn't get the truth? That is what we're talking about on today's show. And now, without any further ado, let me introduce you to Matt Bailey. Matt Bailey, welcome to the Thrive Time Show. How are you, sir?
Hey, Clay. I'm really, really good. How are you, sir?
Brother, I'm excited to have you on the show because I think there's so much you can teach me and our listeners. So let's do this real quick. How would you describe what it is that you do for a living?
Media all day long. So my day job is I work in television. I produce television. I book guests. I write segments. I edit. I make video. I work in television. There's just a lot of stuff that I do round and round and round all the day long, and it's media 100%.
If you had to put on a business card an actual title, what would you put on the card? Media
consultant, probably. Yeah.
I'm going to say media guru. I feel like you're kind of more of a guru. You can't call yourself a guru, but I'm going to call you a guru. Now, where do you call home? Do you live on East Coast, West Coast? Where do you call home?
I just moved to Washington, D.C. 2 weeks ago. Well, a month ago, but I just got my own place 2 weeks ago.
And are you you had to start somewhere. I mean, you obviously have had massive success, but I mean, could you articulate for us or share with us where you grew up or what your life was like growing up as a kid?
Sure. So I grew up in Pennsylvania. I grew up loving watching tapes from Branson, Missouri, if you can believe it.
Wow.
My grandmother would go and bring tapes back, and I would imitate those entertainers in front of TV. So that grew into what I thought would be a love of acting, and it was. I went to performing arts high school. But about the time I was in high school, I found a love for magic and ventriloquism. Stay with me. And started performing solo. And I really liked being the only person on stage and getting all of the attention. So I did that for quite a number of years, even through college. But right before college, when I was 19 years old, I started a podcast. I'd never heard of a podcast. Then a friend at the time told me about this voice actor named Rob Paulson and how he had a podcast. Rob was like all of the Ninja Turtles back in the day, and I actually just interviewed him on my podcast. It's not up yet, but it's like, podcasting. I could do something for ventriloquism with podcasting, and I started it not to do like an Edgar Bergen, Charlie McCarthy thing, but to actually interview ventriloquists. So I interviewed a lot of ventriloquists, and then through doing that, it kind of morphed into a celebrity talk show. and I changed the name from Ventriloquism Weekly to Talk for Two, which is what it is now. And the first guest under the new brand, I think, was Ed Asner. And from there, it kind of just spun out of control. And since the pandemic, I've talked with Larry King, Jerry Springer, Oliver Stone. Unfortunately, I've kind of gotten away from doing the whole magic and ventriloquism thing. I still have props. I still have puppets and boxes. And I still absolutely love performing. But my focus really became media. From there, I moved to New York for college. And it was while I was in college that the show kind of took shape. And I ended up freelancing for about a year, 2 years. And then I got hired by my previous television employer, which was my first foray into working in television and cable news, which I never thought I'd have the opportunity to do ever. And it just goes to show that if you plug a microphone in to a soundboard one day and start talking to yourself, you don't know where it could lead. You could be living in D.C., talking to Clay Clark in your closet with moving blankets hanging up, because that's the path. You know.
Now, okay, so let's do this. This is fun. So you worked your way into TV. Could you share with us where you worked at and what your role was there?
Well, I'm not going to say names of companies just because of
That's
non-disclosures and non-competes, but I will tell you how I got the job, because I think that it's very, very interesting. So I needed a real job. I'm very entrepreneurial, but I was going to be off my dad's insurance, and my dad, police officer for 32 years, retires next year, has the Cadillac of health insurance because of the union, the FOP union stuff, gets really, really good insurance in contract negotiations. I don't know why I'm going into this, but anyway, I had really good insurance, and I was going to lose it. So I needed a job, and I needed to do something drastic. So a friend of mine, hi, Dr. T, you know who you are, introduced me to somebody I would find out was the right hand to the CEO, but he was just moving boxes. He had just been hired because this company was just staffing up to start doing original programming. Once again, they had done it before, then moved to airing all radio shows. And so I had an interview with him, just met him briefly. He introduced me to one of the EPs who brought me in, JB, I'm going to say initials, just to say thank you, brought me in. And what I did is, because remember, I've been doing a podcast now at this point for about 7 years. No, 6 years. Just over 6 years I've been doing my podcast. So I had a name. I had a list of about 100 to 150 names that I printed, that I brought in, that I had booked. Because that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to book guests. I wanted to be a booking producer. And so I went in and I interviewed with this EP. He had to step out to take care of an emergency, but I had my list, and he was like, "This is quite impressive. I'm going to introduce you to our booker, our head booker." And she came in, and she was an absolute fantastic person. And she goes, "Oh my God, we need you like today." And she introduced me to all the EPs. And at 25 years old, all the EPs, I come to find out, they were putting their teams together for the shows. They were arguing over me because they wanted my booking skills. And DW, again, saying initials but not names, ended up hiring me because he was the only executive producer for a show that was not in development, and they needed immediate booking support for one of the only 2 shows that was airing at the time. So that's how I got that job. It was really, really cool. They called me a production assistant, but really I was booking, and I had so much great experience there. I have a ton of great experience there, and it was just wonderful. By the end of my time there, before I moved to D.C., I was doing about 3 to 5 hours of programming a day, booking 30 guests a day, and I got to tell you, there's never been, this job by comparison is much more chill, but I'll tell you, I learned a lot, did about 3 years worth of work in about 10 months time. It was truly a great experience.
Would you call yourself a booker? Is that an actual title, or do they call you a producer, or what do they call you?
Booking producer or editorial producer, the title changes, right? So one company I'm consulting for now calls it an interview producer. The other company they had hired me to actually be a showrunner, but they decided that they were going to bring in an outside. They're partners with another company. I'm with the production company side. The people that are doing the tech and the broadcast side, they decided to bring in a line producer and a show producer on their side, and I'm now going to kind of man the booking desk, and they call it booking producer. So my life is just grabbing people. I'm a people, well, I don't want to say that sounds dirty, but I'm a people grabber. I'm a put butt in seater on television person, booking producer, editorial producer, because it's tricky, right? When you're booking 30 guests a day, you're kind of, when you get pitched from a publicist, and I know, Clay, you get this, you get the story pitched with the guest. It isn't just, hey, this person can talk about anything.
Right.
It's, hey, I have person A who can talk about thing B, C, D, E. When you're booking 30 guests a day, you need the guest in the story. Now, for one of the shows that I'm working on, I'm only booking about 4 guests a day. I need to go for the big people that can talk about the story of the day. So it's putting butts in seats and getting people on television. Sorry, you were going to respond to me there.
So you're booking these people, and it has to be topical, and so it has to be. So as an example, we have the Hunter Biden laptop story, So the Hunter Biden laptop, so that's the big story. That's the big narrative everywhere. It's just, the Hunter Biden laptop. And it is completely not being covered by one side of the media. It's not being covered by the left side of the media. And it is being covered by the conservative media outlets. But people that nobody knew about as of, a week ago are all of a sudden celebrities. They're all of a sudden super sought after. So all of a sudden you have Tony Bobulinski, who was the CEO and partner with the Bidens. All of a sudden, this guy is blowing up. It's like, get me Tony Bobulinski. Last week, people were going, Tony who? So how do you go about booking the big-time guests? How do you do it? What's your moves?
Well, I have tricks of the trade. There's a lot of programs online that I use. No, but I don't tell anybody about them, not because I'm secretive, but they don't need to know. I've never called anybody up on the cell phone and they've said, how did you get this number? They know that if the media is going to search for them, the media is going to find them. That is just the digital age that we live in. And if you have a problem with it, it's your problem, not mine. I'm not meaning to intrude. I'm very respectful when I call, and I've never gotten it. I've gotten it once. And it was a number I found in white pages, in like Yellow Book, and it wasn't even for a podcast. It wasn't even for TV. It was for a podcast interview I wanted to do. This magician who didn't have any representation. I looked him up, and he had a business listing because he's a magician and you can book magicians. He had a business listing in Yellow Pages, but it went to his personal cell phone. And he was like, how did you get this number? I was like, well, it's right there in Yellow Pages next to so-and-so magician. And he was like, oh, thanks. I guess I got to get that changed. I was like, yeah, sorry to intrude. Yep. But I've never had anybody have a real problem with me calling them out of the blue. Typically, you want to go through representatives. You want to be respectful that there's management involved. But if it's a real person like a Tony Bobulinski, or, we had my other network, I was able to book the 90-some-year-old gentleman who was in ABCB who got over COVID. Booked him through his granddaughter. She didn't mind that I found her, trying to book people, the gentleman from the one Netflix documentary about the pharma and how he took down like a farmer ring. The name of the show and his name, Daniel something or other. He's a wonderful Southern gentleman out of Louisiana. I called him up on his cell phone, found it in White Pages on my White Pages app. He had no problem. So it's just, and frankly, Clay, if I could say it, it's being gutsy and ballsy enough to make the call, to send the email, to track it down. There are people out there, I work with some who just cannot pick up a phone, who cannot send an email to a person for the life of them. They think it's too intrusive. And I'm like, you know what? You get an answer. And if they say, screw you for looking me up, well, then that's their problem, and you probably don't want to talk to them anyway. So, it's just having the wherewithal and the thick enough skin to go, you might get turned down. You might get yelled at for calling them or going around a publicist or something without meaning to. You just have to be able to deal with it.
Now, okay, is it okay if I complain about you for a second? Can I do this? Is that okay? Because I guess we could edit it out if you didn't like it. But I'm gonna go for it. I'm going to say you people, because a lot of people say you people. Oh, you people in the media, you people. Oh, just look at you people, you booking producers, you people, you people. A lot of times only cover one side of the story. So what I want to do is I want to go over a few of the networks. I want to throw it out, and I want to talk about you people, and you can tell me what side of the media bias these people cover. And just give us a little sizzle, because you're an insider, and you people are the problem, the mainstream media. So here we go. ABC, is ABC biased to the left or biased to the right, and maybe how can you prove it?
I think towards the left. Look, when it comes to the big three networks, let me just say blanket. I think they try to be fair. I think they do. I think what they end up doing is bowing to advertiser pressure and corporate pressure, because remember, these networks are owned. They're not independent anymore. They're owned by major conglomerates. ABC's owned by Disney. CBS is, I think, Viacom, or is partnered with Viacom. Fox is Disney as well now, not Fox News, but Fox Network. NBC is Comcast. So I think there's corporate pressure to have a slant that appeals to a certain demographic and a certain, because you got to get eyeballs. But I think editorially they try to be fair.
Okay.
Production-wise, I think they lean to the left. Talk about production, because the YouTube, I don't have cable in my apartment, so I ended up watching the debate. The feed where I got the feed from was ABC. And in the 5 minutes before the candidates took the stage, the reporters who are there in the debate hall. Now, granted, this could have been a debate hall rule. I want to be fair here. But the reporters are wearing masks, standing in front of a camera, probably an unmanned camera, because it's super minimal crew. Why are you wearing a mask? Take the mask off so we can hear you. When you talk into a microphone with a mask, it sounds like this, and you sound like an idiot, okay? So I think production-wise, the big three networks tend to lean left, but I think really editorially, they try to be fair. They try to be a source, a just the facts, ma'am source. I know I might be blowing your premise out of the water, but if you're going to get to PBS, I think they're the most middle of the road that you're going to get, because they respond to nobody but, a few donors. Maybe there's a little pressure there, but they respond to the people. It's public access, and it's kind of like a breath of fresh air. I really like the middle of the road stuff that PBS does. So that's my answer. And I want to come back to the Hunter Biden situation if we can in a minute.
I'll tell you what, let's do this. Let's go to Hunter Biden right now. Let's hit the detour ramp where we're driving down the highway. Sure. We see the construction cones. We must not run over the cones. We must hit the exit blinker. Okay, we're at the truck stop. Right. Let's talk about Hunter Biden.
So I take a very middle-of-the-road approach, and I think I'm going to frustrate you a lot today, Clay, because as you can tell, I have a lot of conservative leanings, but they come from a very centrist perspective. So with this Hunter Biden thing, what I'm seeing as a person in the media is it's dubious right now. I think it needs to be examined, but there are legitimate chain of custody questions. What I wonder is, why is the right reporting on this without verifying and really looking into it? And why, or the media on the right, I should say, and why is the left not interested in vetting it at all and just writing it off because it was Rudy Giuliani who brought the police complaint and it was some random computer shop that the laptop was left at? Why are you showing no journalistic interest at all in this story? But then on the conservative side, why are you reporting this without having all of the authentication? I know that my network works very closely with Bernie Kerik and Rudy Giuliani, where I am now, to really delve in deep and to what was available, and we're continuing to verify. So, but on the whole, it's either something that, it's a raw piece of meat for the media dogs on the right to go after, but the media on the left is just sitting there with no interest in vetting it whatsoever, and I think that is a travesty of journalism.
Let's talk about this for a second. I think there's a lot of people that aren't familiar with what the daily grind looks like. So in your industry, you have to get the topical story, but you also have to vet the source. How do you do that quickly? Because you have to do, and every day is another day. The 24/7 media cycle keeps coming. It keeps coming. It takes no breaks. How do you do it?
So the great thing about working in media, working on the television side, is that the story is already written. By the time we're doing a primetime show, I don't want to say we're not breaking news, because we certainly, with Mayor Giuliani, my network, my production company, broke some of that Hunter Biden stuff. But in terms of like the big story of the day, it's already written. So you have the other sources to verify it. And for my job, my lane, which I absolutely love, is just finding the best person to talk about it.
Finding the best. I mean, do you want to have like 2 or 3 people that can vet the source? I mean, as an example, with this Tony Bobolinsky guy, would you have this guy on your show? And what would be the vetting process to decide whether he qualifies to be on your show?
I think you vet him on air. I think you bring him on air and you grill him. Why should we believe that somebody who's a former second son, maybe going to be a first son if Joe Biden wins the election, somebody high up in government with high-profile private relationships, why would he walk in, or somebody from his camp, walk in with a laptop to your repair shop? If this laptop is as sensitive as you say it is, wouldn't they have their own private IT firm to come in and handle it and keep everything in-house and hush-hush? I mean, you vet somebody like that by bringing them on air and giving them the third degree and seeing how they hold up.
Okay.
That's how I would do it.
Okay. So let's go back to the major news networks now. We've been talking about how Fox is under new leadership over the last few years. In 2016.
Well, the Murdochs quit. One of the Murdochs I read the other day quit. Did you see that?
I did. I also have seen that there have been large campaign donations made to the Biden family from people closely tied with Fox. And President Trump talks about how Fox is much different than it used to be. Does Fox lean right or left, or where's Fox News at?
Let's talk a little bit about Fox News. Fox News knew its audience for many, 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 many years. And that, I think, if I've gleaned anything from reading, gleaned anything, I said gleaned and learned in the same word. If I've learned and gleaned anything from watching The Loudest Voice, reading The Loudest Voice, it's that knowing your audience, whether you agree with them or not as an executive, is what is going to bring home the bacon. And so I know that Rupert Murdoch was very conservative in how he ran his business. Roger Ailes was very conservative. Ted Turner, actually, and if you read Lisa Napoli's book, Up All Night, you learn this. Ted Turner for CNN was very conservative. So talking cable on the whole, your political ideology as an executive running a company does not necessarily mean to inform what you are putting on the air. Middle America turned to Fox for many, many years for conservative viewpoints. And if you can't understand that that's where your advertising money is, that's where your eyeballs are, therefore that's how you get your advertisers. Very, very basics of business and staying wealthy and not messing with what works just because you don't like personally the person who's in the Oval Office. That is a problem. Now, the flip side of that is if you play as a conservative or somebody else as a liberal needs to be watching media to validate their own opinion, needs a media channel to validate their own opinion, that's a problem too. Because what ends up happening is you have media trying to control the thought process. And I'd say that on both sides. I would say that if we lived in an alternate universe where the conservative ideology was the dominant ideology in media. If you're watching it and letting that media inform your opinions and validate you and you're not going out and thinking for yourself, then media has lost all purpose and has just become a reality show.
I'm hearing more and more people saying that media is losing all purpose and it is becoming a reality show. And I keep hearing more and more people say, I'm done with it. I mean, more and more people. Now, it could be a confirmation bias because I do tend to hang out with thought leaders that tend to make their own decisions and tend to get less of their meaning in life and facts and information from the media. They tend to be more of the investigative research variety. However, I'm seeing new networks emerge like One America News and Newsmax. And in your opinion and from your perspective, I guess if you look at it as objectively as possible, is there a certain network or there a certain series of networks that America should be turning to for objective facts?
Again, with my role in television, I'm not going to endorse any single one. But I will say just try, just make the decisions for yourself. There's certainly, me as a consumer, I want to see my viewpoints reflected in media. I do. But if you need that as your guiding principle, that's a problem. So just take anything you watch with a grain of salt and know that there are corporate motives wherever you look. And that's not a problem. I'm not going to say that that's a problem because it pays my salary, okay? But just know that the days of Murrow and Cronkite are gone, okay? Completely gone. I talked a little earlier about PBS. Again, without getting myself in hot water, if you want something non-ideological, because I like being in ideological news. I am in ideological commentary and guest booking. But if you want something that really is kind of just there for you to make your own decisions, I think it's probably PBS. And let's go back to ABC for a second. George Stephanopoulos is a former Democratic operative, okay? He can't report objectively. He has too much history. He's not a journalist. He's a wonderful talent. And if you like what he has to say, that's great. But you're fooling yourself if you believe he's bringing you the political news of the day without any kind of a bent. But everybody wants to act like that's a problem. It's a problem if we treat it as doctrine, left and right. If we look at what is being offered to us and think for ourselves, listen to other people's opinions, we're going to be better off as a country. I don't think anybody should treat any one media source as a holy grail.
Okay, so let's do this for a second. Again, I'm just trying to go deep into this stuff because you know the moves, sure. You know the answers. A lot of people out there are looking for answers. I keep hearing people say, Clay, Business Insider. Yeah. Business Insider reported that just 232 media executives now control the information diet, what we ingest, of 277 million Americans. Again, I repeat, just 232 humans control the information diet for an American country with roughly 330 million people. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, that's horrible. I mean, you saw the viral thing. I think it was like Salem Network or Clearcom, one of those. I don't want to commit to one, where they had all the local stations. They're a large conglomerate that owns a lot of local stations, and they were delivering a national story. And it was the same exact copy per market. And somebody mashed all of it together, and it looked a little Orwellian. It was spooky. But I think that's the great thing about new media, okay? I'm sitting in a closet right now, like I said earlier, I have a den in my apartment. My video studio's in the den, and then off of that den, I have a walk-in closet that I have a bunch of sound deadening blankets hanging up with a microphone, a recorder, and then a computer later to push this out to however many people I would want to do this if I were interviewing you. That's the great thing about new media is, they might control the big media, but we're coming. People like Anomaly and Dave Rubin and trying to think of other people on the left. You could tell I work in conservative media. People on the left that have their own podcasts and YouTube shows. We're coming, and we're doing it ourselves. And that is huge. Now, the bad thing, and this gets back to big tech and the Hunter Biden story and the way Facebook and Twitter handled it, is if you even dare to express an opinion that these big tech companies label as hateful. And again, I would say this if we lived in an alternate world where conservatives controlled the media and it was liberal viewpoints being censored. If your viewpoint is something they disagree with, you're out of luck. You're not going to reach those viewers. So not only do conservatives have to develop their own opinions and their own content, or anybody really, entertainment, whatever. Now you run the risk of having to find your own way to distribute it because you're going to be censored by these big companies. And they have to decide if they're a platform or if they're content creators. So those aren't the right words, but there's actually a legal definition. And if you watch Legal, you can find this video on that these platforms are not supposed to be censoring viewpoints, because then they take on responsibility for the content when they start to do that. and it opens them up to a whole other world of legal liability. Not an attorney, not even adjacent to an attorney, but I watch a lot of legal stuff. I watch Legal Eagle. He has a whole video on this, and this was even before all of this happened. I'm sorry I'm getting on a tangent, but the point is, to go back to your question, yes, 200 some people control for 300 million Americans, but now with social media, the blessing is we can, with relatively little expense, put it out there ourselves. The curse is the big tech people, and I'm going to sound so conspiratorial when I say this, we've now proven that they're trying to stop certain viewpoints and that they're in the tank for steering the country in a certain way when these platforms were started to be a marketplace of ideas. And I completely disagree.
I'm gonna pile on with what you're saying, but I want to make sure I'm supplying ample examples. Charlie Kirk is a guy who's guilty of quoting the Bible and the Constitution. This is what he does, okay? He got banned from Twitter. All right, and now this is, put this in your mind. He got banned from Twitter when there are people right now, members of Antifa right now, posting videos of punching a Hispanic mother in the face in her SUV, of beating a man within an inch of his life in Dallas. I can go on and on the examples, and these people aren't banned. Another example would be I wrote a book called Fear Unmasked, and my agent represents Tim Tebow and Jensen Franklin, squeaky clean people, Tim Tebow. I mean, kneeling in the end zone, Tim Tebow. Yeah. And my book got banned from hate speech, and one of our listeners thought it was funny, and they sent me a screenshot of Mein Kampf, and they showed that Mein Kampf, you could still buy Hitler's book, Mein Kampf, but you couldn't buy my books. This happens over and over again. And I know that some people out there maybe think what you just said is a little bit crazy, but it's not. And then I want to get into the word conspiracy just for a second. The word conspiracy, if we look at the definition, it means a secret plan by a group to do something unlawful or harmful. Plotting. Well, listen, Adolf Hitler didn't sit down and say, here's my plan. I'm going to put everybody in concentration camps. He didn't say that. He says, well, hey, there's an epidemic going on. We got some economic turmoil. We need to just put the gold star on the Jewish people, make sure we can contain the spread of the virus, and make sure we want to research them and make sure they don't, we have rumors that they're doing evil things. And then next thing you know, it's Hitler, concentration camps, Nazi Germany. So, I mean, the idea that a conspiracy, a secret plan, would not be underway from people that don't like us is sort of insane. It's sort of insane. Now, okay, let's talk about this. So now we've got 6 companies that control 90% of the media, according to Business Insider and other sources. Is that accurate? I mean, is there less than 10 companies that are really controlling 90% of the media outlets?
I've not studied the data, but that would sound about right.
Wow.
And I think because again, it's all conglomerates.
It's unbelievable. Yeah. Unbelievable. Okay, final couple questions here because I really do want to value your time, but I wanted to ask you the questions that I'm not hearing answers to anywhere else. Just overall, the dangers of media disinformation, censorship, and a mainstream media that shuts down all dissenting voices. Josh Hawley, a senator, he's calling out Instagram for banning praise and worship services, for deplatforming people, while still allowing violent and sexual imagery all over the place. I'd like to get your take on this. Why is it that with big tech, you can put super sexual content out there, violent content, but you can't say the name Jesus or do praise and worship? What's going on with that?
That's not something I've ever really thought about. It's absolutely ridiculous. I do see it happening. I do know that Instagram is very much against pornography, although what they call thirst traps are totally fine. You can be scantily clad, but you can't be naked with all the bits hanging out. So and I think where it gets in trouble, and again, this is just an assumption, where big tech gets themselves in trouble is they like to automate everything. If somebody gets banned for sharing a story, it's because an algorithm looked at a few words, okay? And if Instagram's algorithm, can't detect that somebody's, naked on their platform for a week, it's going to stay up there if the algorithm can't tell. But if the algorithm is also attuned to look for words like Jesus and God and worship, and they're banning that, that's absolutely terrible. That's terrible. Where big tech gets itself in trouble in a more broad sense is, again, they try to automate everything. And I think that's how the New York Post situation started to unfold. Some censor went off and everything got flagged and banned, and then their comms team, the actual people who look into this, didn't handle it right, and @Jack even admitted it as much, that they just botched it completely, I think, and I think botched was his own words. So I think the problem with big tech is not necessarily censorship is a big problem, but the way they are censoring they have almost no culpability because they get to, oh, sorry, the algorithm picked it up. Well, what's your algorithm? Why is it flagging a legitimate organization like the New York Post? Why is it flagging a verse from the Bible? What are you doing to make the algorithm work in that way? And what can be done to loosen that and to allow for a freer spread of ideas? I'm all for a free spread of ideas. Clay, I know you're conservative. You've learned by now that I'm very middle of the road, probably more right-leaning than not. But if somebody has socialist ideas and they want to be part of this conversation, I'm all for it. Nobody should be censored. We should all have a big conversation, and no media should censor that conversation whatsoever.
We have about 2 minutes left. We've got an incredible microphone on your end. You're a great guy. You're well-researched. I want to give you the mic before you drop the mic. So I'm going to give you the mic, the stage. You can say whatever you want to say to the 500,000 listeners out there. And I'd love for you also to have an opportunity to share where people can learn more about you. So again, what do you want to share with the Thrive Nation, and where can people learn more about you?
Well, Thrive Nation, I'll tell you this. I'm all about love and unity and coming together. And I know that sounds like hippie liberal language, but it's not. I'm not somebody who judges someone based on partisan lines. I'm not somebody who gets terribly political. I talk about messaging. I think about messaging and what message is the media sending. And right now, we have a divided media. I work on the conservative end because that's where my relationships are, and frankly, it's where the nicer people are. But where you can find me in my work as a host, I'm not political at all. So talkfor2.com, TALKFORTWO.com, and @talkfor2, spelled the same way, all one word on Twitter, you will find completely apolitical interviews with people like Oliver Stone, Larry King, Jerry Springer, and even coming up actually after we hang up here, Clay, I'm interviewing Sean Spicer about his new book. I have no interest in getting into Trump's reelection or Biden's potential election with Sean. I want to get to know Sean Spicer. I have an interview upcoming with Rod Blagojevich later this week. I'm not interested in, we're going to talk about the Trump pardon. I'm not interested in ideology. I'm not interested in talking about politics and the future of the country, because there are people much smarter than I am that can hash that out. I want to get to know people. That's who I am. And I think what the media is doing right now is trying to divide us completely ideologically, that we don't get to sit down and get to know one another. And so that is why long-form interviews like this are my absolute favorite, because disagree with me or not, agree with me or not, nobody should be canceled for what they believe unless it's a really extreme and harmful belief. And the media should not be defining what an extreme and harmful belief is if somebody is just saying, hey, we need to take a look at this laptop.
You know what? I'm going to have to sneak in one more bonus question. Like, kind of a bonus fry, like at the bottom of the bag. We already consumed what we thought was the end of the French fries, but there's just that bonus fry. We found it, and it's so special. You were mentioning, you're going to interview the White House press secretary, Sean Spicer, the TV great Larry King, film producer Roger Stone. Can you list off a few more people that you've interviewed, just so our listeners know that where they need to? Oliver Stone. If our listeners,
Roger Stone has produced a film. We haven't seen it, and I don't think we want to.
Great. Okay, so if the listeners want to, because some people, it's an investment of their time, and if they're going to check out your Talk for Two podcast, what are a few more names you've interviewed on your show?
Oh, my gosh. I had Bob Barker about 4 years ago. I've had Joel Hodgson, for the nerds out there who love Mystery Science Theater. Terry Fader, who's another conservative, who's an entertainer out in Las Vegas. He headlined The Mirage. for a while. One of my good friends, his name is Kerry Stinson. He was inside the Barney the Dinosaur suit for 22 years, and I'm actually working with him. He's one of the podcasts that I help produce. So there's just a bunch of people. Garth Brooks, I've talked with him. It was very brief at a press conference. Garth and Tricia, big Garth fan. And, he's somebody that I really admire because he can sing a song like We Shall Be Free with a line in it that says, when we're free to love anyone we choose. And then he can also sing a song about being taxed out your ass like American Honky Tonk Bar Association. So he's somebody who, like me, tries to just straddle the line and say, hey, let's all come together. So there's a bunch of different guests, and then you get back into the ventriloquism catalog going back 2013, 2014, 2015. So there's just a lot of great people. Some are hour-long, some are 15 minutes, some are 30, whatever they're willing to give me. I just like to talk to really interesting people.
Matt Bailey, you are a very interesting human. I appreciate you very much for giving us some of your time today. On behalf of the Thrive Nation,
was a pleasure.
Well done, sir, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
You too.
And now, without any further ado, 3, 2, 1, boom!
Attend the world's best business workshop led by America's #1 business coach for free by subscribing on iTunes and leaving us an objective review. Claim your tickets by emailing us proof that you did it and your contact information to info@thrivetimeshow.com.
So my name is John Kelly. I'm from Baton Rouge, Louisiana. So I heard about the Thrive Time workshop through Clay Stairs at Leadership Initiative. So I'm a general contractor. We do commercial residential work. And I'm just looking to refine my business and learn some of the steps to do that. So Clay's office and the team is awesome. They really know their stuff. They have great culture. Awesome place. Clay's presentation style is super cool. He makes it a lot of fun, but at the same time, you can tell he really knows his stuff. He really does his homework. I think the biggest takeaway that I have from the conference is just it's really important to be disciplined and disciplined in a lot of areas. You got to be disciplined with your time. You got to be disciplined in the way you manage, and that's super important. So I think for people not attending the conference, they're really missing a great opportunity to learn a whole lot about business, and they're missing the experience of learning in a fun way. Everyone needs to attend the conference because you get an opportunity to see that it's real. You talk to the coaches and you talk to the leadership, from week to week, but you actually get to see companies that have been through it, and just it makes the whole experience real.
My name is Jay Schroeder, and I am from Nashville, Tennessee. A lady I used for coaching told her I was looking for some sort of conference to get my mind thinking about business, and she found this, and I just flew out here a week later. No, I didn't think it was a scam. It piqued my interest because it's how I think. I think entrepreneurially, and it just, to me, right away it clicked. I've learned that our systems are not exactly where they need to be, and what we need to do, there's a plan in place. He has a plan in place to get you from where you are to where you need to go. It's great, man. It's not your typical corporate. It's got a phenomenal vibe. I love all the sayings on the wall. I love it. Love the smell. The smell outside is great. I love it. It's casual, but yeah, he knows exactly what he's talking about. There's nothing worse than standing and walking, listening to a guy in a suit, rambling at you. Love it. Great presentation. Yeah, interaction's great. You definitely feel comfortable asking a question if you need to. Questions from the rest of the people in the audience also helps. Maybe stimulate more questions that you have. If you have an entrepreneurial mindset and you're trying to get from where you are to where you want to go, you have to come to this. They don't need to upsell it. Their product speaks for itself. If it's what you're looking for, it's what you're looking for. I would recommend it to anyone who wants to build their brand, build their business. Just the day, not even 2-day session yet. I've already got 100 ideas that I want to implement. And I'd recommend it for anyone who has an entrepreneurial mindset and who wants to build their business.
If I lived in China or even Russia or any totalitarian country, maybe I could understand some of these illegal injunctions. Maybe I could understand the denial of certain basic First Amendment privileges because they haven't committed themselves to that over there. But somewhere I read of the freedom of assembly. Somewhere I read of the freedom of speech. Somewhere I read of the freedom of press. So just as I say, we aren't going to let any dogs or water hoses turn us around. We aren't going to let any injunction turn us around.
Gotta pick a side, man, it's do or die. Trying to stay up in the middle, man, that's suicide. Be hot or be cold, what's it gonna be? More be with loyalty, it's all I wanna see. If you ain't saying nothing, then you saying something. What you see is what you get, man, I ain't never frontin'. I say your problem, I'm lazy, cause I ain't never running. Opposition passing it off, cause they ain't never won it. Come on, time to say goodbye, it is you and I.
When you compromise, it will multiply.
We ain't never scared to put it on the line.
It's time to pick a side, it's do or die.
Time to pick a side, homie, do or die.
When you compromise, it will multiply.
We ain't never scared to put it on the line.
It's time to pick a side, it's do or die. No mess, no backs for me. Both middle fingers up for Dr. Fauci. I'm never gonna listen to his latest pitch or the scarf queen. His Dr. Brooks is up. I'm an American with the First Amendment and the Second Amendment to defend it. You want our guns? Well, come and take it. Hope you're good at dodging bullets and you're praying. The year 2020, the year of perfect vision. The time where you and I have to make a decision. Open up your minds like Hunter's laptop. But when you see corruption, this time it's gotta stop. Back the police, say no to the beast. No to the mask, take no vaccine. Back the police, say no to the beast. No to the mask, take no vaccine.
Time to say goodbye, it is you and I.
When you compromise, it will multiply.
We ain't never scared to put it on the line.
It's time to pick a side, it's do or die.
Time to pick a side, homie, do or die.
When you compromise, it will multiply.
We ain't never scared to put it on the line.
It's time to pick a side, it's do or die.
If you compromise, it'll multiply. Treat you like a doormat, treat you speaking mind. Ain't hard to find, you must be blind if you can't see the sign. I got a spine, I won't never let them take what's mine. Time to unify, I'm talking you and I. If you ain't riding for the cause, better move aside. Sit back, watch me work, I'ma do it right. Time for you to pick a side, it's looking like a do or die. Time to say goodbye, it is you and I.
When you compromise, it will multiply.
We ain't never scared to put it on the line.
It's time to pick a side, it's do or die.
Time to pick a side, homie, do or die.
When you compromise, it will multiply.
We ain't never scared to put it on the line.
It's time to pick a side, it's do or die.
Our country will never be a socialist country. We're not going to let it happen.
And that is another lyrical miracle on the Thrive Time Show.